So recording and streaming has been started.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, yeah.
Welcome to the Roundtable discussion, a monthly feature of the Council for Strategic Affairs. My name is Dr. Adityanjee, and on behalf of the Council of Strategic Affairs and its Board of Directors, I invite all of you to this March session of Roundtable discussion. Those of you who registered using our Eventbrite announcement probably saw this flyer. The topic for today's roundtable discussion is regime change in Syria and its implications. For sake of record, today is Saturday, March 15, 2025, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The time in India is 7:30 p.m. and in Japan, 11 p.m. Our distinguished panelists are Mr. Sumeer Bhasin, Dr. Waiel Awwad, and Mr. Ripudaman Pachauri. Before we start the roundtable discussion, a brief introduction to Council for Strategic Affairs. The Council imparts education in the field of international relations. We foster discussion, dialogue, and debate on geopolitical issues. The Council encourages strategic studies in general to raise the level of awareness. CSA condemns terrorism in all forms worldwide. We aim to contribute towards world peace and prosperity. The Council promotes people-to-people contacts and Track 1.5 and Track 2.0 diplomacy. We are registered as a 501c3 organization with the IRS in the United States. To our audience members who are based in US, we will encourage you to donate and support CSA. The link is there on the website. We do a monthly roundtable discussion, usually on a Saturday, second Saturday of each month. We have a monthly guest lecture by a domain expert on fourth Saturday of each month. There's a feature called Strategically Speaking with Dr. Adityanjee, which is one-on-one interviews. We organize symposia, meetings, conferences. We promote publication of articles on geopolitics. We have a fellowship training program in strategic studies, and currently we have two training fellows, Khushi Mishra and Harsh Sinha. And I'll again encourage our audience members who are based in US to donate and support CSA. Let me introduce our panelists today. Our first panelist would be Mr. Ripudaman Pachauri. He is an analyst working in the field of investment banking. He is based in St. Louis, Missouri. He's a member of the board of directors of the CSA and also serves as an honorary chief operating officer of the organization. His professional specialization is in risk management in financial sector. He's also a keen student of geopolitics and international relations, and he has published articles on the CSA website. Our next panelist is Mr. Sumeer Bhasin. Mr. Sumeer Bhasin is a noted Indian geopolitical expert specializing in internal relations and strategic affairs. He is currently based in New Delhi, but he is also a prominent writer and thinker on Afghanistan who has lived and operated several companies and businesses in Afghanistan. He is trying to forge better ties with current dispensation in Afghanistan without breaking with the old. And our last panelist is Dr. Waiel Awwad, and you'll be seeing him soon. He is a very multidimensional personality. Dr. Waiel Awwad actually is a medical doctor who did his MBBS from University of Delhi. He is South Asia-based senior foreign journalist since 1979. He has traveled extensively in South and Southeast Asian countries and has interviewed many Asian leaders. After his MBBS, he did post-graduation in journalism and underwent programs in international laws and human rights. He has diplomatic correspondence, video journalism from London and Dubai. He has investigative correspondence who covered wars extensively in Sri Lanka, Kashmir, Afghanistan, West Asia, Gulf region. He has survived many attempts on his life during his coverage of wars in various places, Jaffna, Kargil, Afghanistan, and lastly embedded as a journalist with US troops when he was ambushed in Iraq in 2003. I don't want to go into lots of details about him because proof of the pudding lies in eating, and you will see his participation. So our topic is regime change in Syria and its implications for our viewers. Actually, I don't like the word Syria. Actually, the pronunciation is Suria. That is the Arabic name for the country, and the colonizers changed it to Syria because they could not pronounce Suria. So after my introduction, there will be opening statements for 7 minutes each by each of the expert panelists. This will be followed by moderated discussion and finally question and answers from the audience members. So this is the country of Syria, just for sake of introduction. And this map actually shows who is occupying which part of Syria, and I'm pretty sure our panelists will refer to it. I'm not going to talk much about the introduction to the subject because I leave it to our expert panelists. But it's a shame that we have in the West helped ISIS retake Syria because of the syndrome Assad is bad and any other substitute is better. So in a very short period of time in December and January, the outgoing administration somehow facilitated the takeover of Syria by an organization called HTS, which is considered a foreign terrorist organization in the US, leading to a quick regime change. And there is a war and torture and atrocities going on as we speak on minorities, whether they are Shiites, Alawites, Druze, Christians, Kurds, whatever. And I'll leave it for our panelists to talk about that. Some housekeeping rules. Please keep yourself on mute to avoid noise interference. Please change your cell phone settings to vibration mode. Please do not interrupt the esteemed panelists when they are speaking. Only those members of the audience who identify themselves openly will be allowed to ask questions. No anonymous questioners, please. All the questions are moderated through the chat room. Please be very precise and specific in asking questions. Please do not send comments in the form of a monologue. This program is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. It will be available on our website as well as on our YouTube channel as an educational resource. And lastly, again, we are a non-profit organization registered as 501c3 organization. Our audience members based in US, please support financially us by donating to CSA. Without further ado, it is my pleasure and honor to invite our first panelist, Mr. Ripudaman Pachauri. And as I said, he's a board member as well as Chief Operating Officer of CSA. Ripudaman, the floor is yours. 7 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Adityanjee, for giving this opportunity this Saturday morning in Washington, D.C. I'll start with a few key points. Just a little background about those who do not know what is going on in Syria, which is very difficult to avoid someone to follow this news. But what happened, there has been dictator rule in Syria for last almost like 50 years. The current dictator, Assad, his father was a dictator. And after his father, he became a doctor. By profession, he's a doctor also. So he did his studies in London, and then he became a doctor, dictator. Well, the current conflict is not, as you know, like it is going on since almost like 10 years. The resistance, very um, a tough resistance by anti-Assad um, uh, forces, which were mainly started with the, domestic groups like FSA. And then slowly it grew up, and then um, it has been going since then. It has been going in major cities of uh, Syria. So you should know that geographically, the major part of Syria is the desert part. So in the central Syria, there has been very less fight between the government forces and the forces which were seeking freedom from Assad government. So the areas which were close to Jordan, Israel, Iraq, Lebanon, Turkey, those were the areas affected. Uh, so now we need to know like who has been fighting and where they have been fighting and with whom they are fighting. So they are not a single partner there. They are there's a lot of hodgepodge going on there. The United States forces thought they will fight ISIS in Syria. So they got involved and they supported the SDF, which is the Syrian Democratic Forces. They also were joined with the Kurdish forces, YPK, YPG, sorry, and also got a diplomatic and the financial support from the governments of UK and France. Then there was another group, which was the Middle Eastern group, the Qatar and Kuwait-led groups. Um, they also financially supported the regime. Turkey got involved. They supported HTS to fight against Assad leadership. Then there was another third group, which was third axis, which include Russia, Iran, China, Iraq, and Palestinian groups. So Russian forces supported the Syrian army. Iraq forces, um, sorry, Iran forces supported Hezbollah um, to fight against, to support the Syrian army. Even China also got involved, and they provided the diplomatic support, the economic aid, the medical support. There were some Palestinian groups also involved in that. They also got involved. So there are a lot of partners. We won't forget Israel. Israel has its own interest. They don't want that war to come to their country. So they want to resist the struggle going on to the borders and basically contain that resistance to their borders with Syria. Um, Also, there were non-state actors also, which came from um, like ISIS and Al Qaeda, and they all from basically started earlier. Like ISIS started first. They had their own agenda, but then joined the forces against SDF, and Al Qaeda also started supporting ISIS and started supporting the uh, regime. So a lot of things are going on. There are a lot of topics to discuss on. Now, after December 2024, um, there the the new government, the interim government was formed, and ironically, the current president um, was a Saudi-born person. He used to be an Al-Qaeda terrorist, and he was from an organization called Al-Shara that later become Al-Nusra, and which is now currently known as HTS also. So here we also have in our leadership, in their leadership, they have a prime minister who's kind of a decent guy, but it's debatable. Like when you are part of a terrorist organization and fighting with your own people. So that is also a debatable question about his personality. The northern part, the current situation is the Kurdish people who are at the northeast level, northeast area of Syria. They are thinking of declaring freedom, whereas there is a Turkish, sorry, there are Turkish people who are Kurdish. Um, Kurdish people in the Turkish region, Turkey thinks that it's threat to their sovereignty as well if there is a Kurdistan um, came out from the Syria. So Turkey is basically trying to contain Kurdish people also. So there may be, it depends on how the Kurdish people decide, what they decide, depending on Turkey's mood will change. US initially were supporting Kurdish people, and if you see, there were a lot of support from US in the past in Kurdish area, which is the northeast area of Syria. Um, US, after this new um, um, tactics of US to tackle the things situation in Syria, they are thinking of still fight with ISIS and Al Qaeda, and what probably will not get involved in the internal matters of other internal matters of Syria. So I'll take a break here, Adityanjee, and I think that sets the background, and we can discuss further more needed.
Thank you, Ripudaman. Now it's my honor to invite Mr. Sumeer Bhasin to make his opening statement. Mr. Bhasin, platform is yours, sir.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, sir. I would, as Pradhumanji has given a background on the ground, I would just look at it from the geopolitical environment in the region. As we know that the Hamas Israel war is in the vicinity, and the timing of this attack has been close to the takeover of the U.S. administration by just before 1 month before the takeover by Mr. Trump. And the Israel has, after December 8th, bombed almost 80% of the military infrastructure and ammunition areas, and also captured areas in the Golan Heights. The issue is, as Mr. Pradhuman said, Dr. Pradhuman said, that my take is that there is a pressure on. So we call them, as he rightly put, now non-state actors. My view on geopolitically is that we had the major events which took place in the world were the Arab Spring, the war on terror, etc. This falls under that sort of domain. The war on terror, which started after 9/11, according to me, finished on 15th August 21, when the US handed over Kabul to Taliban. And now we see a trend after the US is now in their policy allowing, let's put it this way, for lack of words, a lot of tolerance for except calling terrorists non-state actors and handing over, reimagining them and shortening their beards and making them wear Italian suits and calling them pragmatic. You know, so they are giving them a certificate of being suddenly becoming pragmatic from people who had a bounty of $10 million on their head. The gentleman in question from HTS was also in US prison, we should remember, for 5 years. So, he's been sort of, let's not, this thing being selected, and Turkey and the US went on a deal on this particular thing. As we all know, the current foreign minister of Turkey was the head of intelligence and was the handler of Mr. Ahmed al-Shara, or as he was known as Abu Muhammad al-Julani. Uh, the as Mr. Pradhuman said, the current events are very disturbing. With the current, in the last weekend, the fighting which has taken place. I'll go to, sir. He gave a historical background, but I will go to what is happening now, and it is anybody's guess of what will happen in the future, and what are the challenges for anyone, whether reformed or not, which face him to basically face the reality in Syria, which is the security, economic reality of Syria, uh, and rebuild the infrastructure. So clearly, Mr. Ahmed Al Shara faces controls, as you showed in the map. He and his affiliates, the area which was marked red, which is on the western side of Syria, and the predominant, which is along the Mediterranean, starting from the north to the south, and the SDF controls most of the mineral resources, oil and gas resources, which are in the northeast. Access to those resources to rebuild Syria will require, revenue from the oil and gas to be generated internally to fund the reconstruction. And we recently saw on March 11th, there was, after these very unfaithful incidents of violence where a few thousand people were killed, which took place along the coast. There was a signing of deal within the head of STF and Mr. Al-Shara in Damascus, which there are all kinds of claims that it was put through by the US, whatever. And then on the 13th of March, he announced he made a constitutional declaration. So these are events which are trying to show that they are making progress. But the real challenge is, besides the security, and also understanding that the groups, because the future governance will come under Islamic jurisprudence, is how the rights of the minorities are protected under that. So these are fundamental questions which are not addressed. The other factor is, how do the Kurds and the Turks reach a settlement, which is very difficult to say. Whether suddenly old enemies will not become best buddies or friends, because of any reason. And now I'll come to the challenges. As we all know, that the sanctions are a major challenge because it blocks most of the all kinds of reconstruction activity. It blocks flow of money, and even the basic infrastructure. The electricity plants are destroyed. The 40% of the housing is destroyed, and the countryside is destroyed. So any sort of reconstruction will require the West to address the sanctions, which is not an easy go, because the West will, it's a chicken and the egg story. The West, although the EU and the UK has relaxed some sanctions on certain entities in Syria, but the US is still watching, although they have removed Mr. Al-Shara from the bounty on his head, but they have not removed HTS from the list of terrorist organizations, and the sanctions still remain. Now, it is to be seen that what is the tolerance of the West on saying that they will let in relax sanctions. As you know, it was passed in 2020 by the Caesars Act. Although Mr. Trump has executive powers to give some sort of relief, but then finally that act has to be repealed or reviewed in the U.S. Congress. So it is a very difficult time, and I see a very I hope I'm wrong, but with this recent event, that series shows that the so-called pro-Assad forces are still in play, and although they may have marginal support from their old backers, but they still are. You cannot write them off completely. So if these incidents start acting up and this fighting erupts and Al-Sharaa, starts to lose control, then it will probably go down south very quickly, probably like the Libya way. So I hope I'm wrong, but I am not very optimistic because all these people who have aligned under one cause is ouster of Assad, which is over. So now what is the common cause? Because they have different beliefs and different ideologies and different backers. So there is no common cause binding them. So that is one. And the second factor is, so the challenges are economic, the challenges are governance, the challenge is huge amount of poverty. About 13 million people are under the poverty line. So it is a very complex scenario. And as Mr. Trump has taken under MAGA, taken his focus off. He's right now focused on Ukraine, and he's stopped USAID projects. So his bandwidth for applying sort of his mind and energies to sort out Syria will be limited. So I think we are going through a very tumultuous time in Syria, and let's hope that what they're posturing, because even with the deal between SDF and the current team, it is a very cryptic deal. There are no clear understanding of how their issues will be addressed. So I think it's more of probably what I can gather is from Western standards, showing that it is progressing, but there are real sincere security and economic challenges on the. I think I'll end with that.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bhasin, for your analysis of the situation. And now it's my distinct honor and pleasure to invite Dr. Waiel Awwad, who has been from the region and has a keen eye of observation on the region. Sir, the platform is yours. Please go ahead and make your opening statement.
Thank you very much for your invitation and for your kind word and for the distinguished guest touching on the Syrian issues, where I am a Syrian. And as you have rightly said, it is Syria, and that is the sun by Sanskrit language as well. So the sun rises from Syria, and Syria will survive this turmoil as we have survived for 10,000 years. So the regime comes and goes. But the fact of the matter remains that we were part of the policy of the United States for regime change, which they have implemented all over the U.S. policy with the repeated presidents of the United States. They continued the same policy of removing regimes by force. They started the plan of removing the Syrian government when General Wellesley Clark, the commander of the NATO forces, said it in November 2001, and he said that one of the military officers of the United States have given him a small paper written by hand that there are 7 countries should be removed, Muslim country, within 5 years, and that was Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Iran, Somalia, and Sudan. And the fact of the matter that all have been removed except Iran, it's a clear indication that the policy continue and the saga of the United States policy toward the region continues. So when the United States unilaterally and exceptionally went into Iraq and invaded Iraq, in fact, that time was the turning point in Syrian crisis. because many of the forces and the fighters who went to fight the United States have taken Syria as a shelter there, and they used to be armed, trained, and pushed into Iraq to fight the American troops there. And that have been one of the reasons why these militancy group found the ground in Syria and grown up, and they have remained between Syria and Iraq. After the jihadist culture started in Afghanistan and most of the Arab mujahideen left to their hometown, they started regrouping when the United States went into Iraq and invaded Iraq, and they created what called as Daesh, the ISIS, which was part of the Levant of the terrorist organization, which the United States, of course, gave them shelter till date and hold jails in the northeastern part where the United States is still occupying part of Syria under the Kurd. More than 55,000 terrorists is still under their arm. And Idlib, the province, the northwestern part of Syria, eastern part of Syria, was taken by the Takfiri jihadist group led by more than 80 factions of different groups. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham was one of the group who have, over the years, succeeded in eliminating small groups and jailed more than 12,000 people inside Idlib till date, and joined hand with many of the groups to form Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and rightly said that he was part of al-Nusra, part of affiliated to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, but now he said that was the young days, now I changed, I'm making a new Syria. So the West have turned Syria into another pilgrimage zone, kept on visiting after the change of Bashar al-Assad regime. Bashar al-Assad continued to be a president of Syria. He took over from his father, and the regime was supported by the Ba'ath Party during the father's side. You remember that Syria was ruled by the Ba'ath Party, and it was part of the constitution that the Ba'ath Party is the leader of the people and the governing. So there was a changes after President Assad, the son came in 2000, and he tried to get some reform in the country, but he failed to do so because most of the NGOs, the civil society whom he tried to create in the beginning, turned their gun against him, and he thought that he was left with nobody. He closed it, and he turned into a military and intelligence apparatus Syria. But let us give some credit to the Syrian people that the government, we had no debt to IMF or World Bank. We had compulsory education, and also we had a free education and free medication and subsidized food. So the only issue was that there was not much of a freedom to be on the political arena, and there where you will be jailed, you will be killed, you will be isolated if you challenge the government. And that was for a fact, despite that there was some small party doing so. In 2011, when the Arab Spring started, we all know that most of the Arab capital collapsed. The president of Zain al-Abidin of Tunisia left, then the president of Egypt, Hosni Mubarak, then Muammar Gaddafi. So the people of Syria thought that they can do the same. Why can't the regime be changed like they have done in other countries? So they started their peaceful revolution, which took around 6 months, actually, when the Syrian people start going to the street and revolting against the government. This slogan was at the beginning that we needed to change the government and we need the reforms and all. But after 6 months, it took turned into a violent demonstration where al-Nusra blew up many of the Syrian installation, and they claimed responsibility. So it became more of a fight against terrorism. And then when the war started, the 2015, they have occupied Aleppo, northern part of Syria, and then the Iranians stepped in, Hezbollah stepped in, and then they liberated those territories. Then Russia came into the focus, because the Russians have a military base in Syria, and it's the only military base in the Mediterranean Sea for years for the Russian forces. So they took part, they supported the Syrian army along with the Popular Front of Iraq, and then they defeated terrorism. And let me make it very clear that the defeat of terrorism only carried out by those forces and not by the United States and the West at all, because it is the same forces, as you know, and I know, and the rest of the world know, that they have made a coalition to fight terrorism. They are the same people who are supporting right now terrorist organization to take lead in any of the countries. So having said that, I would say that now the regime, maybe Ahmad al-Shara, who is still carrying the bounty of 10 million. United States did not remove the bounty, by the way, nor they have removed the tag of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham as a terrorist organization. Even Iraq, even Jordan still, because some of the Iraqi and Jordanian lost their lives during his activity as a Al-Qaeda cadet. So now they are seeing they are changed. So the change is understood that they will only serve the United States and Turkey and Israel. Israel have said it very clearly, doctor, that they are funding, they have been funding Al-Qaeda, they have been funding Hayat Tahrir al-Sham since 2013, and they know they are paying them back. So Israel took 3 provinces of Syria till now, Qunaytura, Suwaida, and also Dara, and they said this area will be dismantled. There will be no armed in these areas, and they continue. Why? Because we know that oil discovered in Golan Heights and the Golan Heights tributaries are 65 kilometers deep inside Syrian territory. So therefore, the pretext of defeating terrorism or fighting Syrian new regime as a terrorist organization, though we know they have fully supported, they make makeshift hospital for them. Netanyahu was shaking hands with them at the Golan Heights. All these available on the YouTube and Google's, and you can find it out. But when they took over, now they have a pretext to expand on Syria. So Trump came to power. Trump had a deal with the Russian over Ukraine, and he made it clear for Zelensky. So Russia sold the President Assad to Turkey. Turkey thought to bring back the de facto Khalifa Erdogan to make a more province of an Islamic state inside Syria. So now how to manage a regime run by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a new president, where 55 to 60 groups of different Takfiri groups, more than 60 to 70,000 Uyghur, Tajik, Uzbek, Chechen, Moroccan, Jordanian, Palestinian are out there going to take the Syrian nationalities and be part of Syria. So the retribution against the Syrian people is very much on. It's against the local people. It is against the Druze, against the Druze supported by Israel, protected, the Kurds supported by the United States, the center supported by Turkey, except the Alawite portion, which is the coastal part, is not supported by anybody. Now the Russians stepped in, the United States stepped in, UN Security Council comes up to the resolution. The point here I'm trying to raise is that these people who have come to Syria are foreigners, and they think they are forming a new Islamic state in Syria. And that Islamic state will be led by Ahmad al-Shara, where it will expand into that region. But will the United States let these things seriously happen? Will Israel allow an Islamic state take place next door to it? I doubt it. And I think that is the reason why Israel wanted to expand at the cost of its neighbor, why the United States is happy to see that the fall of Erdogan is soon, because the disintegration of Turkey is on the card, because they have played the card of supporting the terrorist group differently, and they opened their infrastructure during the Arab Spring 2011, and they infiltrated into Syria and Iraq. And I think the situation is quite complex, and I'm trying to finish it here just to leave the question and answer session. The question is because Israel thinks that it is achieving, it is Old Testament doctrine which says Israel border from Euphrates to Nile. So they are trying to expand at the cost of the neighbor. They are happy with the current situation to continue for some time. United States wanted to continue with its project in the region along with the Israeli project, which is similar to each other. The Turkish project is different from both the sides. So Israel and Iran used to fight a proxy wars over Syria during the Iranian influence in this part. Now Iran is out. It is Turkey versus Israel who can grab more territories of Syria. So if an Islamic state to be formed, that means there will be an expansion, there will be Federation of Syria, no breakup. But if they don't allow it, then we can see more of disintegration of Syria. And I think a regional war is still on the card because the United States is unable to solve the problem with Iran. If that has happened, then global peace and security is at risk. Global trade and oil will be at risk because Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz, and also the Suez Canal, all this area will be blocked and the world will suffer. So I think we need a responsible leaders in this world to make sure that Syrian people can be ruled by Syrian, for the Syrian, and no foreign intervention if we wanted to see Syria back to stand on its own feet. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Waiel Awwad. I knew that you were of Syrian origin, and you had the first-hand knowledge of the region. And
Okay.
that's why I kept you at the last panelist. It's very interesting that the person who is the leader of Syria now was not born in Syria. Al-Shara was born in Saudi Arabia. So that is, I mean, I can understand your repeated references that only people from Syria should be allowed to lead that country. But my first question goes to Mr. Bhasin. Mr. Bhasin, kindly unmute yourself. The question is, what is going to be the fate of two military bases that Russian Federation has, one up in north, Khmeinin Air Base, and then Latakia Naval Base in Mediterranean. What is the fate of these military bases? Has Russian Federation cut a deal? Keep these bases? What's going to happen to these bases?
I think they've definitely cut a deal, and a deal first with Turkey on the ground, because Turkey was, provided was hands-on in all this movement with the STS. So they've definitely cut a deal, and now because of a rapprochement on Ukraine between Putin and Trump, I don't see a challenge to these two bases. I don't see that coming up. So I think those two bases are there to stay. So that I think neither the Americans nor the Israelis nor the Turks have a problem with. STS means already agreed to it. So I don't see a change to any kind of threat or challenge to the two bases.
Thank you, Mr. Bhasin. My next question goes to Mr. Ripudaman Pachauri. Please unmute yourself. It is like, gazing at a crystal ball, one cannot predict the future. But looking at the complexity of the situation and number of players involved, do you envisage that Syria as a country will be able to keep its boundary, or it will be balkanized or grabbed by up north by Turkey, south by Israel, and northeast by SDF into an autonomous Kurdish region? What do you envisage, whether the current cartographic picture of Syria would survive or there will be a change?
Yeah, very good question, Adityanjee. So a lot of people have their vested interest. I think before it will technically become a federation and balkanized into smaller units, I think they'll, very sad to say, they'll still, this resistance will continue. People will encash the opportunities. For example, the interim government will be making deals with the Russian to maintain their Russian bases in exchange of some, monetary support or other type of supports. Um, as Dr. Awwad said, the Golan Heights area, which basically is extended towards the southwest region of Syria. Israel would like to basically have some sort of dominance in that area because of the oil. Similarly, Turkey would like to recalibrate their approach because of the Kurdish people. They would not support too much the Kurds in Syria, but basically it will be taking steps up and back and forth. Same with the Qatar also with and Tehran, they will be engaged in more of the diplomatic and humanitarian efforts and just watch what is going on and like to contain the conflict within that area. But back to your original question, will it be balkanized? I think I am not a very good person to, I'm not a Syrian. Any Syrian would not like to, get the country fragmented into shorter, small units. But this is what I think the war will continue for some time, as it is going on since last 10 years. Because if you have seen, like in last 3 months also, there is no stability. There's still a lot of friction, especially if you see the coastal areas of Syria, a lot of Shia Sunni conflicts going on. Whosoever have grudges against each other, they are basically taking opportunity and killing the opposite party. Um, the housing market has basically impacted a lot. There is a lot of humanitarian
Thank
issues
you,
going on.
Ripudaman. You have
Yeah.
made your point very well known. My next question goes to Dr. Waiel Awwad. Dr. Awwad, as we speak, I think 2 days ago, Ahmad al-Shara announced that Islamists will continue to be in power for next 5 years. A new constitution is being drafted as we speak. What do you envisage in next 5 years if HTS gets full control of Syria?
Well, I think, first of all, there was a truce MOU signed with Qassad forces in the Kurdish area, which is also will lay down the arm and there will not be a fighting. But the detail remain in the devil remain in the details of that agreement. We do not know yet what sort of an agreement they have reached, because Turkey is not happy to see the Kurdish forces part of Syria, especially when they know that they are vulnerable of breaking and disintegrating. But I think this is a step where American and put a force on Turkey, and the Turkish forced al-Shara to sign, because at the beginning they told him not to sign any deal with the Kurd. So if this has happened, that means we are only left with the Druze area of the south, where there is some sort of an arrangement also with them to bring them on the fold of a new government. The problem here is with the new drafting of the constitution, where all the expert and the legal consultant whom I have been in touch with, not everybody was happy with the outcome of this constitution. It just gives the supreme power to the president, who will appoint a member of parliament, who will appoint the ministers, who will appoint the Supreme Court, those who will be double him in case he fails. So he will give himself 5 years on power as interim president. Therefore, there is no power limit to him. He have all the supreme power. He is the next Khalifa, if I can put it on that way. He is the one who will be having the full control on Syria. And if he spread his control over Syria and give nationalities to all those, mercenaries and all these groups who have fought with him, and with the support of the West and the eyes, there are two scenarios, Doctor, for Syria actually. One is to allow, that's what the Western world look at Syria currently, allow all the terrorist organizations to be in Syria, let them kill the Syrian people, let the Syrian minorities call for an international intervention. Then the West, who uphold democracy and humane, they will come and jump and save the Syrian people, and they will kill all the terrorists. That is one of the options they are doing. The second option for President al-Shara is he has to act as a Syrian. He has to act as a real Syrian. But will they allow him to do what he is planning for Syria? I think there is a long way to go. And as long as he is allowing Israel to continue expansion without firing a shot at them, and at the same time Turkey is integrating part of Syria, Aleppo and Idlib, into its own Turkish provinces, as they said, and they're so I think the constitution carries no value as if there does not include all the strata of the society of Syria. We cannot have one color of Syria. We are a cosmopolitan. We are mosaic of the Syrian population. We have Druze. We have Alawite. We have Christians. We have Ismaili. We have Shia, Sunni. So 80% are Sunni. Rest are included. And Syria have been surviving because of its diversity. So the constitution has to take everybody in consideration, which is very difficult, especially when you start dealing with majoritarianism to rule the country.
Thank you, Dr. Awwad. My next question goes to Mr. Bhasin. Mr. Bhasin, kindly unmute yourself. The question is that we talked about possibility a deal having been cut between Russia and Turkey and all that kind of thing for the regime change. There was a purported statement by Dr. Bashar al-Assad that he never wanted to seek asylum into Russian Federation. He had visited one of the military bases, and then he was basically made to take up the flight to Russian Federation. Now, you are a journalist and investigative reporter. What information do you have about this particular issue, whether he left voluntarily or he was forced by the Russian government to flee to Russia?
I think if the Russians were involved in the deal, he had very limited options, for where to go, because there was no other, besides going to Russia. I don't see that he has practically any other options of either remaining in the region or because the only other option was probably Iran. So I don't see him going anywhere else.
Okay. The next question goes to Dr. Awwad. Dr. Awwad, as you know that West/US had this autonomous Kurdish region called, what they call was Danes, or what locally they call Rojava. There are reports that SDF has signed a kind of truce with HTS, and that is being frowned upon by Turkey. Do you think this autonomous region will survive, or HTS will basically take it under its own supremacy and hegemony and there will be no autonomy to this so-called autonomous region?
Well, you remember when the Syrian crisis started, actually, Turkey opened its border like Pakistan in the making, and total infrastructure was given to all the terrorists from all over the world. They have come from 83 nationalities. We had 173,000, according to UN agencies, who have come to Syria through Turkey and Iraq, into Syria and Iraq. So Turkey was hoping that most of the Arab Spring country will fall in the line of the ruling party of Turkey, moderate, as a symbolic of an example that they can be changes of a political Islam. But the American took Turkey for a ride when they started supporting the northern eastern part, where the US, Turkey, US, France, UK were occupying that northern part of Syria because of its oil, because of the basket of the agricultural business for the Syrian government. They applied sanctions on the Syrian government. They created havoc inside Syria. So Kurds were supported. They were minority in that part. There were hundreds of Arab tribes, Syrian tribes living there. They removed them. So Turkey was not happy with the American step. They wanted to remove the PKK, which is considered to be Öcalan forces. They are fighting, and they consider it as a terrorist organization. And now they are trying, they put pressure on Al-Shara not to sign any deal, but to go ahead. But the United States made it a red line. And even President Trump acknowledged that he spoke to Erdogan, and he said he's a good president. He listened to me. He didn't attack them. So where the catch-22 Turkey is, either they have to surrender Gaza and the Palestinian cause, which they have been rhetorically supporting it, doing nothing about it, or they are going to forget about the Kurdish enclave, where the United States will be looking for the future to blackmail Turkey and break up Turkey into Alawite, into Kurdish area and into other states, because it's a heterogeneous society. So I think it's a very difficult position Turkey currently in, but the deal is yet to know the detail, because just an MOU, and this MOU will retain their guns. They will not surrender to the army. They will still stay there. American military bases will legitimize, and they will be continuously in that part of the world. So I think it's just a kind of deceiving the public about the reality of the Syrian situation. As I said, There is an American project, there is an Israeli project, there is a Turkish project, and everybody trying to grab part of the cow with their knife. You know, when the cow falls, everybody take the knife to cut his portion. I think Kurdish questions, they may be fooled, as they have been fooled throughout history by American deceiving them, but I think till now they're holding strong with the American support in the West.
Thank you, Dr. Awwad. My next question goes to Mr. Ripudaman Pachauri. Kindly unmute yourself, Ripudaman. Dr. Awwad talked about Turkish project, American project, and you can talk about Iranian project or Russian project. But coming to American project, this sudden regime change, despite an ongoing war for almost 10 years, in which Dr. Bashar al-Assad was able to survive and sudden collapse of the regime and the last legs of Biden administration raises certain points. Knowing the domestic political situation in United States, the current US administration is not beholden to the policies, whether they are domestic or geopolitical policies of Biden administration. With Trump being a transactionalist president, do you think Trump administration will care a hoot for who rules Syria, whether it is HTS, whether it is Bashar al-Assad coming back, or whether it is any other entity? Do you think Trump administration will continue to support what Turkey is doing there or other forces are doing there, or he will let Syria re-stabilize, because there are reports of clashes between Alawite forces versus HTS?
See, what I think is America under Trump leadership is more of it's a transactional government. They believe in deals, and they will also save their interest in Middle East. They will their recent deals related to rare metals, the oils, and other thing, like reconstruction of the housing industry. Those kind of things will basically come into picture. They will try to start humanitarian efforts and basically get engaged when whosoever is in the power in whatever region. Accordingly, they will make a deal. And I think America, it's the best interest. It is in best interest of America that they'll continue is whatever is going on with a little bit, changing, recalibrating themselves. So that's what I think the future lies. Regarding the Kurdish people, America would not like them to support either fully. I think they think it's better to, have them in like whatever situation they are in right now. The that YPG, which was basically a Kurdish protection army. Turkey thinks that they are part of the terrorist group. Okay, and Turkey is going to not let the Kurdistan form. So there is a lot of going back and forth going on. So as I said, like based on whosoever gain what area, what territory, based on their needs, America will recalibrate their interest and make basically deals with those parties. And I think that's what is going to happen, at least in the near future.
Thank you, Ripudaman. The next question is from the audience, and I will address it to Dr. Awwad. We have peripherally referred to this. There are ongoing clashes between Alawite forces and HTS. What is likely to be the fate of the minorities? Because STS is basically a Sunni group, and Alawites are the minority Shia group. And with ongoing clashes and ongoing killing of women and children, not just the able-bodied men, what do you envisage that for Alawites, for Druze, for good people with STS dominance, because that is primarily a Sunni group beholden to the Al-Qaeda and ISIS objectives of a Sunni caliphate?
Well, I think let me make it very clear, Doc. Here, there is no fighting between Alawite and the Sunni. There is a genocide against the Alawite. They already, when Ahmad al-Shara came, they surrendered their arms, their group, and they end up there, and they told the American, Ahmad al-Shara, that loyal to him. But the problem is that when the erupt started in Latakia, it was pre-planned to attack and revenge against the Alawite minorities, blaming that they were supporting President Assad. And we all know that everybody was happy that they got rid of Assad, because even the Alawites in Syria, to be frank with you, they have not enjoyed that lavish life that President Assad and 2% of the Alawite community did enjoy. So because most of them are peasants, poor people, you could see the picture, the killing, the moment that she's defying them. And there, Ahmad al-Shara saying that I am not the one responsible, is not my group, some other group, and he formed the commission to fight. And the international community now is focusing on Syria because this is a fight, a killing against minorities who have no guns. They're killing them at the blank point, chopping them, taking their liver out, eating it raw, and then they're showing on camera. And these are actually Tajik, Uzbek, Shishan, Uyghur. They don't even speak Arabic. They just simply coming to kill them. So if that is the agenda of the Islamic State, where they wanted to revive what we call as the Umayyad dynasty, or that is the sedition in Islam, where they wanted to create more fighting, and they turned it out to a Sunni Shia kind of a form and get rid of the minorities in Syria. And I think there where the responsibility of a good leader should come, if he's able to control his own group whom he have brought them into Syria. And I think the right way of doing it is to push them back into the corner of Idlib before they sending them back home, not to create a state Syria and allowing them to create havoc and kill innocent people.
Thank you, Dr. Awwad. My next question goes to Mr. Sumeer Bhasin. Kindly unmute yourself, Mr. Bhasin. You are still muted. So the groundwork for this current conflict and regime change in Syria, they were laid long ago, after the successful conclusion of the first Gulf War in early 1990s, when Saddam Hussein regime was subdued and put in a box after the first Gulf War. You look at the political contours of the WANA region, West Asia, North Africa region. There were three competing forces: a Saudi Arabia-led Sunni alliance of nations, an Iran-led Shiite countries, and Turkish quest for caliphate. Those were the three dominant things. And Saudi Arabia-led Sunni nations actually targeted, after Saddam Hussein, the two remaining Ba'athist socialist countries. And it was predicted that the next onslaught would be either on Syria or Libya, because these were so-called secular socialist countries in an Islamist region. And you saw that systematically over a period of time, over decades, the Ba'athist socialist regimes were destabilized to uphold the Sunni hegemony in WANA region. Now you have a reformist movement in the leader of the Sunni countries, which is Saudi Arabia and their ally UAE, that they are reforming themselves and are not supporting Sunni fundamentalist forces. So that becomes a very different situation. Will HTS have full support from the Sunni countries, especially Saudi Arabia and UAE? And will they be able to have enough support to be able to dominate entire Syria because of changed geopolitics of one region?
Can I, sir?
Go ahead.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
So, sir, good. You gave the reference of Saudi Arabia earlier. You have to take a little further back from where you started. The Cold War. During the Cold War, we know the Afghanistan episode where the Americans basically allowed radical forces to come up in this region to counter the communists, right? And Saudi was one of the anchors, both in terms of ideology and in terms of funding for that whole extremist Wahhabist ideology, which was overtaking the region. Now, as you know, that Saudi is going into a reform pact, and they are realizing that, in the new geopolitical game, America, because Russia is no longer a really a challenging power to the US. US's attention, as you know, now is focused on China. So now they have repositioned themselves as a moderate face of Islam. And the challenge in your question, the answer is that with these, it is more to do with the internal dynamics of the different players HTS has to handle and the economic reality in a country which is, I was checking their GDP has fallen by almost, is lower than Afghanistan actually. The World Bank figure for 2011 shows Afghanistan GDP at 14 billion and Syria GDP at around 7 billion, right? So they are economically devastated. He has various challenges. I think they will deal with it in terms of more in terms of first on the geopolitical side, more related to the oil and gas game and the trade routes. And I think that will be this thing. This Turkey, which is not, because these countries are surplus in oil and gas. Turkey, which is deficient in oil and gas, wants to become the leader of the Islamic world. So I think the challenge is between them. Syria basically falls in between. Syria is it's mainly it has some oil and gas, but it's geostrategically located. It's geostrategically located, so it falls in there. So I think that's where they will use their influence. And coming back, as you are just adding there on your last question on the Americans will basically have 2,000 troops in Syria in the northeast, and they will, and this sort of uh, very broad this March 11th agreement is basically showing that US influence is still there. So it will all pan out, and if the geopolitical rivalry between US and China shifts, then it will also change the dimensions of how geopolitics plays out here. Because if the US and Russia reach a deal on Ukraine, then there will be also readjustments of their positioning in the Wana region. So that's my take on this.
Thank you, Mr. Bhasin. My next question goes to Dr. Awwad. You had very proudly mentioned that we had, primary medical care for all Syrian citizens. We had education. There was kind of harmony between the communities, although there was an autocratic government. We have seen that because of external interventions in that country, the life was disrupted, not just for the regime, but also for the common persons. And you yourself mentioned that a genocide is going on there. For a common Syrian citizen, irrespective of fact whether they are Alawite, Shia, Turkmen, Druze, Christian, or Sunni for whatever that matter, it is the day-to-day peaceful life that matters. Do you envisage any possibility of either revival or restoring of Assad regime? Because it brought some good things to Syria.
I don't think so, because Assad regime is a history now. It is the time came when the Western power, the big power, decided to remove him. Doctor, a country fighting terrorism for more than 14 years, with more than 400,000 soldiers been fighting them. You think it can go in 1 week because the defeat? Shara did not take Damascus, by the way. Shara, the forces from the south, led by Ahmad Aoudi, who was supported by the Russian, who took Damascus first. So they were not even anticipating the takeover Syria. So therefore, to claim that they have made a victory on the war against Assad, I think this is a gimmick, and I will not go down in history that I can writing history again in the wrong side, wrongly. I mean, this is no way that they have gone that far and they were able to remove the regime because that they were forced and there was fight. There was no fight. The Syrian government fell in because of the Russian, because of the refuse to allow the army to fight. They took the president out of the palace at a gunpoint. They took him to Latakia and they siphoned him. That was a deal. When the big power decides, nobody can talk about that you are able to be on the power because Mr. Netanyahu pressed the SOS button, the United States, that his country survival is at risk. And therefore, there's a time to remove Assad after Hezbollah has been paid the price, after Hamas has been defeated in the ground. So Israel was in a sham, because the government was falling, the army is disintegrated, lots of loss. So this was a major decision. I don't see Assad coming, and even if Assad come back now, believe me, the people of his countrymen, of his Alawite sect, will kill him and will hang him in the street because of his wrongdoing. It's not that I'm saying it was a zero crime during his time. Yes, there was a zero crime. There was a total security. They were secular. Absolutely, all these things were there. But the 2011 till 2024 changed the history of Syria because of the sectarian violence, because of the killing, because of the changing demography. All this has a great impact on the people. And people were so desperate that they were unable to feed themselves or they get their food back because of the corruption in the government and the malpractice. All this have led to the fall of a President Assad. I don't think there's a chance of his coming. I think what Shara is trying to understand or be more intelligent is not to implement Taliban style in Syria, nor Daesh style in Syria. He came with the new Islam. If that is Islam, you can accommodate all the sect of Islam, fair enough. But if you are coming with one color, you wanted to get rid of the rest of Muslim people whom you don't believe, because many of the Sunni family also lost their life in Syria, by the way. It's not only the Alawite, the Druze, and the Shia have been killed. Even moderate Sunni clergy have been killed. That means there is certain faction within the government and within these forces wanted to see different Syria. So I think the danger lie ahead. Forget about Assad. We need to see how Syria will be and what will be the impact on India, on Asia, on the regional, on the Middle East, and the future of stability in this part of the world.
Thank you, Dr. Awwad. There are a couple of more questions, but we will end the discussion here because it's a very fast evolving situation. The last word on Wana region, to which Syria belongs, has not been written. With the changes in international geopolitics, events are unfolding at a rapid pace. And it is likely that there will be cartographic changes in the entire Wana region. Syria is not the only affected area. So we can discuss, we can take hypothetical questions. History never ceases, history is being made, but From Council for Strategic Affairs, we wish well to the people of that country, Syria. We wish that there is no genocide, specifically of the minorities. And when I say minorities, I am not just referring to Alawites, I'm also referring to Christians, I'm referring to Druze, I'm referring to Kurdish people. So minorities, irrespective of their religious affiliation or their ethnic affiliation. My heartfelt thanks to all the three panelists, Mr. Ripudaman Pachauri, Mr. Sumeer Bhasin, and Dr. Waiel Awwad, with whom I share a bond because both of us are medical doctors by training. My also thanks to the audience members on a Saturday morning who took time to participate in that discussion. Mind you, Syria is not a very huge country. It's not a country that is high on oil reserve in the Wana region. Actually, it is low on oil reserves. And for a transactionalist president like Mr. Trump, it may not hold any value because there's no rate of return on the investment because the oil reserves are very minimal. But my hope is that situation stabilizes. Thank you very much indeed to all the panelists and all the audience members. We will take a break here. This program has been recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel. It will also be available on our website. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.